مساء الخير وأهلا بكم إلى هذه الحلقة الجديدة من واشنطن أونلاين. معي أنا هديل عويس على نورث بريس. تحضر الولايات المتحدة بقواتها العسكرية على الأرض في شمال شرق سوريا، بينما تغيب بشكل شبه كامل بدبلوماسيتها، بينما تتعرض المنطقة لقصف تركي عنيف يستهدف البنى العسكرية التحتية لقوات سوريا الديمقراطية والمدنيين والصحفيين على حد سواء. فما سر هذا الصمت الأمريكي؟ وهل تستمر سلبية الولايات المتحدة في حال أقدمت تركيا على عملية عسكرية برية؟ هذا ما نبحثه في حلقة اليوم مع ضيوفي، وهم السيدة نادين ماينزا، الرئيسة السابقة للجنة الأمريكية للحريات الدينية، تنضم إلينا من العاصمة الأمريكية واشنطن، ومن أثينا تنضم إلينا السيدة أوزاي بولوت الباحثة في مشروع فيلوس، ومن فيرجينيا ينضم إلينا السيد ووكر جرومز الناشط في مجموعة دعم روجافا في الولايات المتحدة. ابقوا معنا لمتابعة هذه الحلقة. مساء الخير وأهلا بك سيدة نادين، شكرا لانضمامك إلينا في هذه الحلقة. سيدة نادين، لماذا هذا الصمت من إدارة الرئيس جو بايدن؟ يعني تصريحات، ردات فعل مقتضبة وخجولة جدا من الإدارة الأمريكية تجاه كل هذه الفوضى العارمة التي تحدثها تركيا في الشمال السوري، المنطقة التي تتواجد فيها قوات أمريكية.
It's very disappointing that the US government is being quiet right now when it's clear that they've opposed any Turkish military action. I privately have been assured by some in the US government that they have not given a green light to any military action in Northeast Syria. I hope that a statement is coming out soon.
هل يعني هذا الصمت من إدارة الرئيس جو بايدن تجاه ما يحدث أن الإدارة اقتنعت بشكل أو بآخر بالإفادة التركية التي تتهم حزب العمال الكردستاني ووحدات حماية الشعب بشن أو التخطيط لهجوم تقسيم، وأن هذا الهجوم كما تدعي تركيا أعطيت الأوامر لتنفيذه من مدينة كوباني في الشمال السوري؟
It's so clear now that the suspect in that horrible bombing, and my condolences go out to the families of those that were killed. I had friends that were nearby when it happened, and so it was a terrible event. I hope they find the perpetrator. The woman they have arrested has no ties to the Northeast Syrian Democratic Forces. I understand her brother might be in a Turkish-backed militia. She came through Idlib. So Turkey using that as an excuse to bomb Northeast Syria is clearly ridiculous. I have not spoken to anyone in the US government that believes that Northeast Syria was responsible for the horrible bombing in Istanbul.
لا تزال الولايات المتحدة تمتلك قوات على الأرض في شمال شرق سوريا. لا تزال الولايات المتحدة ترصد جزء غير قليل من ميزانيتها لإرساء الاستقرار في الشمال السوري لضمان هزيمة تنظيم داعش. يعني لا تزال هناك مصلحة أمريكية وأهداف أمريكية في شمال سوريا. ألا تعرقل هذه العمليات التركية خطط وأهداف الولايات المتحدة؟ ألا تعتبر هذه التحركات التركية تحركات معارضة ومناوئة للأمن القومي الأمريكي؟
That's what's so frustrating to watch, is what Turkey is doing right now is actually interfering with the U.S. mission to ensure the enduring defeat of ISIS. Since they've been attacking the last few years, ISIS has started to rise again. Of course, we saw all the ISIS fighters try to break out of the prison, and those from outside come and try to help them last year. So, earlier in the year, so we see that Turkey's actions are counter to the U.S. goals in Northeast Syria. So it would make a lot of sense that the U.S. is pushing back against that. I do believe privately the U.S. is communicating that they're against these military actions, but the key is, are they willing to do anything to stop it? There's all sorts of actions they could take, whether it be sanctions, whether it be economic actions, to pressure Erdogan further to not continue this military attacks or to stop an invasion. So I do hope that that's happening behind the scenes. It's hard sometimes to know exactly what's happening since so much of it isn't public, but I do think a public statement would be helpful.
هل تمتلك الولايات المتحدة خيار وقف هذه الاعتداءات التركية وللأبد، خيار منع الدولة التركية من هذا العدوان المستمر على الشمال السوري؟ هل تملك أمريكا الأدوات، أم أن الأمر خارج عن السيطرة والإرادة الأمريكية؟
I do believe they do. The United States is the most powerful country in the world economically, in all sorts of different ways. They could pressure and incentivize better behavior in this situation. So I do think they have the ability to push Erdogan to not commit these airstrikes. I do believe they've stopped an invasion in the past, and I'm hopeful that if he's considering invading again, that the U.S. is willing to use those different tools at their disposal to push Erdogan to not invade. An invasion would be disastrous.
اليوم ومع انقسام الكونغرس الأمريكي بين مجلس شيوخ يسيطر عليه الحزب الديمقراطي ومجلس نواب سيطر عليه الحزب الجمهوري، هل نتوقع تغير في المواقف الأمريكية تجاه التواجد في الشمال السوري؟
No, I believe it's pretty bipartisan, that there seems to be an understanding that they're important in both Iraq and in Syria. President Trump had a unique relationship with Erdogan, which is why he ended up pulling troops, but it was against the wishes of most members of Congress. And we're seeing now, consistently have seen the chairman, Menendez of the Senate Foreign Relations, who is stood up against Turkey and was said he would not support F-16s being sent to Turkey because of the way they're acting against our allies. So I actually think Congress is pretty supportive, but this is really in the administration's hands. So the administration needs to stand up and say this isn't allowed. I think the other thing that is important to consider is as Turkey is allowed to push the envelope and go past acceptable behavior, this impunity is actually creating an environment where they may overstep in a huge way. Just last week, President Erdogan threatened to invade Greece. These are pretty significant threats that he's making, and it's important that the U.S. stop him now rather than allow this kind of behavior to continue.
سيدة نادين، لا شك أن الحرب في أوكرانيا فرضت نفسها على الساحة السياسية والقرارات السياسية في الغرب بقوة، من الملفات المرتبطة بالطاقة إلى العلاقات الدولية، وخاصة العلاقة مع الحليف الإشكالي في الناتو تركيا. سمعنا من ستوكهولم قبل أسابيع تصريحات تقول أن السويد ستقطع علاقاتها مع جماعات كردية. هل تقيد اليوم الحرب في أوكرانيا يدي الرئيس جو بايدن أيضا والإدارة الأمريكية فيما يتعلق بفرض ضغوطات أكبر على تركيا لوقف هذه الاعتداءات ضد الشمال السوري؟
Certainly, Turkey is an important player in the world, and it has been important in the Ukraine-Russian situation. So yeah, the U.S. is in a very tough spot, and I acknowledge that they want to keep a relationship that's positive with Turkey. They don't want Turkey to align with Russia and other forces against the United States. But having said that, there are still things the U.S. could do to push them back from taking these sort of actions. And I think correcting the misinformation, like the Istanbul bombing, the information that the Northeast Syria is all the PKK, that their goal is to destroy Turkey. Those things are not true. The U.S. can stand up and say they're not true. And the U.S. really should push Turkey actually to settle the Kurdish question by negotiating with the PKK. The PKK said they would be willing to, and settle this. So this is no longer an excuse to go after Northeast Syria. In addition, it's also harming the people of northern Iraq, who are also seeing bombings, invasions. So there are things the U.S. could do to try to bring peace to this region and to push Turkey to settle some of these problems that have overcome into Northeast Syria. And now we're interrupting this democracy, this really remarkable place with religious freedom, gender equality that they have built, that actually is our chance for lasting peace in Syria. And that's part of the reason that Erdogan wants to destroy it.
نعم، شكرا جزيلا لك السيدة نادين ماينزا، الرئيسة السابقة للجنة الأمريكية للحريات الدينية، كنت معنا من واشنطن.
Thanks so much.
وأتحول معكم الآن متابعينا إلى ضيفتي السيدة أوزي بولوت، الباحثة في مشروع فيلوس، تنضم إلينا من العاصمة اليونانية أثينا. أهلا وسهلا بك أوزي. سيدة أوزي، كخبيرة في الشؤون التركية، كيف تفسرين اتهامات الحكومة التركية لحزب العمال الكردستاني ووحدات حماية الشعب في سوريا بتفجير تقسيم؟ كيف استقبل الشارع التركي مثل هذه الاتهامات، ومن هذا الخطاب الذي اليوم يستخدمه بكثرة النظام التركي ماذا نتوقع مستقبلا في المستقبل القريب؟ هل نتوقع تصعيد في هذه الهجمات تخرج عن كونها فقط هجمات جوية لتتطور إلى عملية برية؟
When the media broke the story of the explosion attack in Istanbul, so many Turks on social media started writing comments about other recent terror attacks in Turkey prior to elections. For example, in June of 2015, in November of 2015, right before elections in recent years, Turkey has experienced terrible terror attacks. So when such deadly attacks happen in Turkey, so many people, particularly people in the political opposition, remember those attacks and question the government's possible involvement in those attacks. So yes, I think we could expect some military escalation in the region, because Turkey claims that there's the PKK and its Syrian wing, which is the YPG. That's what the Turkish government claims is behind those terror attacks. I mean, the terror attack in Istanbul. So this could be Turkey's excuse to launch another military invasion against Syria, particularly against Kobane, which is today controlled by the Kurdish YPG group. So this terror attack, I mean, right after the terror attack, the explosion attack, what the Turkish government did was to impose a reporting ban on the incident, and then silence the opposition media, and then restrict the public's access to social media, and create its own narrative, which is filled with many inconsistencies and contradictions. So many people in Turkey have a lot of questions about this recent terror attack in Istanbul.
هل تمتلك الدولة التركية اليوم المؤهلات التي تمكنها من تحمل تبعات غزو تركي جديد في الشمال السوري؟ يعني هناك تبعات دائما عسكرية واقتصادية وسياسية على تركيا، غالبا ما تكون سلبية بعد كل عدوان. هل الحكومة التركية اليوم مستعدة لتحمل مثل هذه التبعات؟
Turkey has been occupying large sections of northern Syria since 2018, alongside jihadist groups such as HTS, which is affiliated with Al-Qaeda. So I think Turkey wants to invade bigger parts of Syria, including Kobane, especially prior to the elections, to increase Erdogan's votes. So I think this terror attack could very well be used by the government to create a pretext or an excuse for the Turkish military to launch another military invasion against Kobane. I think Turkey might be getting prepared for this.
ماذا عن الحسابات السياسية للناخب التركي؟ هل تساعد هذه الهجمات، هذا التصعيد التركي اليوم ضد الشمال السوري الرئيس أردوغان في انتخابات 2023؟
Well, in the past, like you just said, the Turkish government is thought to have carried out similar terror attacks right prior to the elections, and Erdogan has won those elections. Were those elections fair and free? There are, again, a lot of controversies and questions about that, but Erdogan has achieved to win those elections. So I think there are many political consequences or implications of this explosion attack in Istanbul. First of all, it might affect the results of the election, because I think the government is trying to give a message to the people that if you're not going to vote for us, if you're not going to keep us in power, there might be more terror attacks, more chaos, more instability, and more deaths. So this might be a message by the government to the people to keep Erdogan in power. And another implication is that after this explosion attack, there was a media reporting ban on the incident. So this is also another attack on the press freedom in Turkey, because most of the coverage in the Turkish media concerning this incident is done by the state-run media or pro-government media, and it is largely based on what government officials are saying about the incident. Because of the media reporting ban, and because journalists know that if they question the government's narratives, there will be consequences. They could get arrested or prosecuted, so they are under threat by the government. So this terror attack, which, by the way, the PKK or the YPG has rejected any involvement in this terror attack. It's going to cause many political implications for the Turkish public in the short and long term, and all of which are negative.
وأخيرا سيدة أوزي، الناس في الشمال السوري تسأل هل كان هناك ضوء أخضر أمريكي أو روسي أعطي لتركيا قبل هذه الهجمات الجوية التي تستهدف قوات سوريا الديمقراطية؟ هل تهتم تركيا أصلا في هذه المرحلة بضوء أخضر أو أحمر أمريكي أو روسي؟
Well, the Turkish Republic was established in 1923, and next year, 2023, will mark the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the Turkish Republic. And the Turkish government has an agenda called 2023 Agenda for next year. So they want to achieve something huge to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the Turkish Republic, of the founding of the Turkish Republic. What could that be? Well, first of all, Turkey wants to expand its boundaries. It's already occupying parts of Syria alongside some jihadist groups, but it also wants to expand or occupy more lands in northern Syria, in northern Iraq. The government officials, including the political opposition, have been threatening to invade the Greek islands in the Aegean for months now, or even years. And they also want to annex the Turkish occupied northern part of the Republic of Cyprus. So the Turkish government does have expansionist goals, neo-Ottomanist goals, and Syria and the Kurdish groups there seem to be an easier target for the Turkish government because Greece is a NATO member, Cyprus is an EU member, so they can't attack those nations easily. But Syria, for them, is an easier goal. So they do want to, based on their statements, when we listen to what they're saying, they want to invade Syria or Kobane and other parts controlled by Kurdish groups. How will the US or Russia react? Well, every time Turkey carries out a military invasion or operation against those groups, they use the terrorism card. We are fighting against terrorism, they say, and they get away with their military aggression. So I am not sure how the US or Russia will respond to the Turkish aggression this time.
شكرا جزيلا لك ضيفتي أوزي بولوت، الباحثة المختصة في الشؤون التركية في مشروع فيلوس الأمريكي.
Thank you for having me.
وأتحول الآن معكم مشاهدينا إلى ولاية فرجينيا الأمريكية، حيث ينضم إلينا ووكر جرومز الناشط في مجموعة الدفاع عن روجافا. أهلا وسهلا بك سيد ووكر. ووكر، حضرتك ناشط في مجموعة تسمي نفسها مجموعة التضامن مع روجافا أو الدفاع عن روجافا، وهي مجموعة تضم عدد من النشطاء والسياسيين والطلبة الأمريكيين الذين يؤمنون بقضية الشعب الكردي، يؤمنون بفكرة الإدارة الذاتية والشراكة الأمريكية مع قوات سوريا الديمقراطية. هل هناك برأيك وعي عام اليوم في الولايات المتحدة؟ هل يعرف الشعب الأمريكي اليوم عما يجري في شمال شرق سوريا، وتحديدا في ظل الهجمات الأخيرة من تركيا على المنطقة؟
I don't think that there's enough generally among the US population. I think some people heard about things like the Trump administration abandoning Syria, the Syrian Kurds and the autonomous administration of North and East Syria when Joe Biden attacked Trump for that in one of the presidential debates leading up to Biden's presidency. I think that I think some people may have a vague awareness of the fact that the Kurds in Syria and the internationalists with them have constituted the main fighting force that defeated the territorial caliphate, something that is being undone by the current Turkish airstrikes and the ones that have led up to this. But I think that there's a lot more political education that could be done among the US populace. I came to awareness about the political project in North and East Syria through people I knew from Latin America who were part of social movements there, who had been students of what had been happening in Rojava. So I think that there's a lot more that people can, in the United States, myself included, can do to educate others about this and try to kind of have to be in solidarity and with the Syrian Kurds and the political project of democratic confederalism there, and understand why it is so unique and is such an exemplar for the region and really for the world.
نعم، موكر قمتم بمجموعة من التحركات الشعبية والسياسية للفت الأنظار إلى ما يحدث في الشمال السوري، كان آخرها وقفة تضامنية منددة بالهجمات التركية ضد قوات سوريا الديمقراطية والمدنيين في الشمال السوري. هذه الوقفة كانت أمام السفارة التركية هنا في العاصمة واشنطن، ولكن هل تكفي هذه الوقفات الاحتجاجية، هذه الحركات التي لها طابع يعني أكثر ميداني لتغيير رأي الإدارة الأمريكية أو للضغط على الإدارة الأمريكية لتضغط بدورها على الحكومة التركية لتغير من نهجها تجاه قوات سوريا الديمقراطية؟
Yeah, I think that it's always a little bit of a uphill climb to get people who, especially in the United States, where knowledge of foreign policy and geopolitics is not everyone's strong suit. I think it can be kind of a bit of a climb to get people oriented to understanding the history. That's something that I'm doing with myself and looking into Kurdish and Turkish history just on my own time. But it's a rich history to delve into. I think here in the DC area, certainly you referenced that there's going to be a demonstration in front of the Embassy of Turkey, 2525 Massachusetts Avenue Northwest, here in Washington, D.C. from 1 to 2 p.m. So just in a couple of hours, if people are around in the DMV area. But I think that there's a lot that people can do with their members of Congress. I think that because the Kurdish people are the largest ethnic group that do not have their own state formation, that because of the fact that the Turkish public relations machine behind the Erdogan regime is so well funded and kind of assiduous and thoroughgoing in their information and misinformation, that I think that people can in the US and internationally but specifically here in the US can find information for from ArcDem, the American Rojava Center for Democracy, Rojava Information Center, Emergency Committee for Rojava, and all these organizations have social media. And so I think that learning a little bit about the situation, I learned a lot from kind of going down a YouTube rabbit hole in 2019 about the fight against ISIS or Daesh, and the centrality of the Kurdish forces, especially the SDF, in that fight and defeat of the territorial caliphate. And so once you have, and people can, I'm sure, listen to your show and learn a lot as well. And there are different writers about some of these issues. If you want to get deeper into the history, Jean Bajalan, Halil Karavelli, and once you have a little bit of a foothold, and you can, and even better if you can make contact with some Kurdish people in your area, in the DMV. I've run into people at protests, and you can find people through the Washington Kurdish Institute. Once you have that foothold, that is to say, and that was a lot to say, I think reaching out to your member of Congress and letting them sort of helping make concrete to them the stakes of why it's so important for Turkey to not act as this bully and to conduct these airstrikes, weakening this political project and effectively strengthening the remnants of ISIS who the Syrian Kurdish forces have in prison. That was one thing earlier this year that was extremely troubling with earlier Turkish incursion into North and East Syria. So I think that, and you can find there are ways on congress.gov to find your representative, reach out to that person and their staff and sort of figure out what they know and what you can kind of bring to the table to them. And then that's how you can help build the momentum to kind of change things and to bring these things more into the conversation. It's I think that if you're not watching,
نعم، شكرا جزيلا لك ضيفي السيد ووكر جرومز، الناشط في مجموعة الدفاع عن روجافا، كنت معنا من فيرجينيا.
Thank you, Hadil.
وختاما شكرا لكل متابعي واشنطن أونلاين ونورث بريس، ألقاكم في حلقة جديدة الأسبوع المقبل، إلى اللقاء.